Hello, and welcome to the Education and Training Career Choice panel discussion. We are very excited to have our panelists and participants with us today. To get things started, we'd like to know how you are joining us. Please let us know if you're joining us as an individual attendee, and what that means is you're viewing on your own device, or if you are participating as a class via the poll on your screen. And we'll give you just a few minutes if you'd please respond to those questions. Oh, okay. So it's 50-50. It looks like we have 50% of the attendees are participating class, and then 50% is individual. However you're joining us today, we hope you'll actively participate in the discussion. While you cannot chat with our panelists via the chat feature, you can and are encouraged to submit questions for the panel or a particular panelist via the Q&A feature. Please submit your name or class name with your question, and we'll read it along with your submission. Or feel free to submit a question anonymously. There will also be a couple of polling questions, just like the one we just completed a few minutes ago. Please submit your answers promptly so we can have them recorded. Now, without further delay, I'd like to turn things over to the panel's moderator, Dr. Julie Brown with the Institute of Advanced Learning and Research.
Well, thank you so much, Sherry and Jesse, and good morning to everybody that's able to participate live in today's webinar. You're attending the Education and Training Career Panel. So this is one that from the first moment that you started either pre-K or kindergarten, you've been exposed to this career path through a teacher, a principal, an educator. So I would say this is probably the career area where you've had the most exposure. But again, we've got some great panelists that are here today and giving their time to share with you why they're in education and training, along with there's some career pathway information. So they're going to give a little more introduction to themselves, but we do want to welcome today Traci Daniel with Danville Community College, RJ Greger with Nottoway County Public Schools, Daniel Hale with Cooperative Extension, which is part of Virginia Tech, and Scott Walker with Microsoft. So welcome. We're going to go alphabetically today. So we'll start with Traci, then RJ, Daniel, and Scott. So if you would just kind of give us a little bit about your where you work, big picture, what you do on a daily basis, your career path, and some other jobs that you've had. So Traci, take it away.
Sure. We're education, so we go alphabetical. That's just how we do, right? Like Julie said, I am Traci Daniel. I am the program director and assistant professor for early childhood education at Danville Community College. So any college is going to have career pathways and programs for their students, and early childhood is the one, it's the path that I chose for myself. So I'm happy to be the assistant professor and director of this program. In my work, I teach our students. Our students are ones that want to go and teach young children. So our students are interested in children ages birth through age 8. And if they want to go teach in the school system, that takes them up to 3rd grade. So our program doesn't address all teachers through 12th grade, but just through those early years. So you'll see some of our students there that have been with us in previous years, and all the different projects and things that we do. Being in early childhood, our students learn a lot in the classroom, but I feel like they learn more out in the community. So we do a lot of projects, we do a lot of conferences, we do a lot of things with children and different events and community fairs and things like that with partners in the community. A typical day for me is coming onto campus. Pre-COVID, we always had class face-to-face. and my students would be in class, learning with each other, hands-on, asking questions. More recently, we've been doing a lot more remotely. So our students are taking classes online. With that, I feel like there's a lot of flexibility with their learning. So they get to do a lot online, and they get to do, they still get to go into childcare centers and schools and do some of these things, but it opens up a lot of flexibility for me too, because I get to go out in the community and do more, because I don't have a lot of class time with them. But we do have spaces on campus where our students can come together and work on projects and work on things together. As far as my path in getting here to my position, I actually started as a student in the program years ago. So I've kind of come full circle. I started as a student. I started teaching part-time once I finished my college classes and got my graduate degree. And then I have been teaching full-time for 4 years now here at DCC. So I've received my associate degree, my bachelor's degree, and a master's degree. I started in the field just by wanting to work with young children in a childcare center. So I first started working with children in childcare, and I loved it. And I thought I just wanted to work with 2-year-olds forever and ever. And that's all I ever wanted to do. And I quickly realized that there are a lot of different avenues in early childhood. There's community aspects, there are family connections. There's roles inside the classroom and outside the classroom. There's a lot of organizations and partnerships that education needs to support young children. So I quickly learned that, and that is when I decided to pursue my education and obtain more and higher level of degree. So then I wanted to go into teaching, and I want to not only be able to impact young children and their families, but I want to help people that want to go and do that too. So now I'm educating the people that want to educate the children. So I'm still in the field, and I've held a lot of roles that support families and young children. And it's just amazing to see all the different avenues that are out there as far as education is related. And that's it, I guess.
Great. Thanks, Traci. Really appreciate that. Mr. Greger, you want to go next?
Absolutely. Thank you for first of all, the opportunity to talk with you all today. As you see, my name is RJ Greger, and I am currently the Director of Human Resources and Community Relations at Nottoway County Public Schools. Prior to that, way back, I was a 8th grade science teacher in Fairfax County. Then I was I just saw my pictures pop up. 8th grade science teacher in Fairfax, and then relocated to Chesterfield, where I was in education there, administrator and teacher there. And then I had an opportunity to come to Nottoway as a Director of Human Resources. And it's just been an amazing experience. And one of the aspects of is coming from Fairfax. If you all know Fairfax, it's large is not even a word to explain Fairfax. And then I came to Chesterfield, another large system, and it came to Nottoway, which is, more rural and smaller community. And it's just been an amazing experience so far. As you can see over on the pictures, that's just some images. The upper right was the high school, Nottoway High School. The bottom left center picture is when we went into COVID. It was just amazing to see everyone kind of pitch in and jump in. And that's an image of us handing out Chromebooks to all the students in Nottoway County. We just they drove through the parking lot, and we all met together and passed out information and the Chromebooks to all the students that didn't have them already. And the upper left, half jokingly say that's kind of my home away from home. That is a picture of my office here in Nottoway. So my daily routine, kind of piggybacking after what Traci said, what I do is, my particular job here as human resources is to help people and help the school system. And what I mean by helping is help try to find great people. Like Traci says, she trains them. I'd like to hire all the people that Traci produces. So that's one of my aspects of recruiting great people. And not only recruiting great people is retaining them, meaning helping them stay where they are and enjoy what they do and find great people to be in front of students as teachers. So that's one of the aspects of my responsibilities of recruiting. The other aspect of it is problem solving. Does a teacher have a problem? Does administrative problem. Let's kind of work to solve problems together and get solutions for everyone that kind of stays within the boundaries of our expectations and so on. So one of the biggest things is recruiting, retention. And I also, the time of, COVID, we got to communicate information clearly. A lot of people are nervous about COVID. So we try to have an open policy so that school systems and the community can trust us with the information that's going out. That's part of the aspect of my community relations piece with that. So we hire people, we want to keep people, we help problem solve. And it's just a great place, good family network here to try to get great people to be in front of students and teach them. My path of how I got here, like I said earlier, I was an 8th grade science teacher at the beginning. And then I went into administration, moved into Chesterfield and so on. So I got my bachelor's degree at JMU, and I got my master's degree at Virginia Tech, and then I got my doctorate at Virginia VCU. So those kind of led me into the positions that I've kind of got into today.
Perfect. All right, next we're going to hear from Daniel.
Good morning, everyone. So just to get started with that, my name is Daniel Hale. I'm the 4-H extension agent for the city of Danville. So I'm part of Virginia Cooperative Extension, which is a branch of Virginia Tech and Virginia State University. A big picture of what I do is obviously education. I work with teachers, community leaders, stakeholders, and we identify needs in the community or in the classroom, and I produce, come up with, or deliver curriculum to help meet those needs and kind of get the students of the community to the knowledge retention that we want them to be at. So I'll describe a typical day from before COVID, because that just makes much more sense to me. So I would come into the office first thing, do any paperwork that needs to be done. I'm also the unit coordinator, so I handle a lot of financial stuff in our office. After that, I would go to the middle school, go through all 4 periods with one teacher. I'd rotate what teacher I did each week. And usually it's some kind of science lesson or English, language arts, character counts, team building, anything they think they need. And my offices just came up on the screen. You can see my office is a lot, definitely not as neat as Mr. Gregor's for sure, but I function really well on having stuff sitting in front of me on a poster board. So that's what that looks like. And you can also see my car, because that's where, that's my home away from home. I'm in my car pretty much all the time. I've been with the organization for 8 years in various roles, always doing 4-H though. I have always wanted to work in this field. When I was like 14 years old, I said I wanted to be a 4-H agent. And so I went after that, and now I have it, and I'm really happy with that. My education, my undergraduate degree is in psychology, my master's degree is in human services counseling with a focus on executive leadership. You do need a master's degree to do my job to be an extension agent. My first ever job was working fast food at Wendy's in high school, which gave me a lot of skills, learning how to interact with people, good customer service, organization, time management, all that stuff. It was a really useful job. I think the favorite part about my current job is the flexibility. So it's up to me completely. There's no supervisor that says you need to be doing this, this, and this. It is up to me to decide what the needs in the community are, and it's up to me to decide how I want to meet them. So I'm evaluated based on how I meet my own goals and not necessarily based on goals that come from somewhere up on administration. Yeah, I think that's all I have.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Daniel. And next, we're going to hear from Scott Walker.
All right, bringing up the rear. Scott Walker, I'm Microsoft. I still geek out a little bit every time I say I work for Microsoft, because that's so cool. I am coming to you from my home office. I'm not at the data center right now. We used to go in every day to the data center before COVID, and then when they locked down, they decided that trainers, I'm a trainer, were not essential, so we got sent home, and so we're just now getting back into going in. I went in last Monday through Wednesday, but today I'm staying at home. But anyway, so as a trainer, my job is to welcome new hires. And our little data center in Boynton is growing quite a bit. It's getting bigger and bigger. And as we expand, we need new people. So those new people that come in, it is, depending on your role, some of them are pretty complex roles. And so it is my job first to get them there, to get them onboarded and do a lot of the regular onboarding stuff, get payroll set up and talk about benefits and that kind of stuff. But then getting them set in their role. And so, yeah, during lockdown, COVID lockdown, it's kind of difficult to train when you're not there in person. all of the technicians that work there, they are considered essential, so they have to be there. So they've been there the whole time because, you know, what we do is really important. And you may not understand exactly what a cloud center, a data center is, but we host all kinds of services, and that could be healthcare or police or government, and these things have to keep running, so that during, you know, these uncertain times when we're not sure what's going on, we need to make sure that we can trust these things. So we don't get new hires every week, but when we do get new hires, that's my focus. I get them comfortable with their job. I started there about 6 years ago, and so I remember how scary it was. These pictures, they're not actually from my data center. I'll explain why in a second, but when you get to a place like this, it's a little overwhelming. It's scary. It's nothing like I've ever experienced before. And so I remember that anxiety and first of all, not wanting to make a mistake, because when you make a mistake and the lights go dark, that's a big deal. But I wanted to, you know, learn all these things, and it was just scary. And so I remember that. Even though it's been a while, I remember it quite vividly. And so that's my focus, is to make sure that new people come in, they know what they're doing, they feel comfortable, they know where everything is. So the reason, real quick, why these pictures are not from my data center is because we have a lot of security out there at the Boyden Data Center. The security, and I explained this one time, we're a little bit like a bank. We're not keeping money safe, but we are keeping data safe. And some people think that's even more important. And so we have lots of security. It's a little bit like going to the airport, if you've ever been and you have to go through the screeners and the metal detectors and all that kind of stuff. But one of the things they make us do is they make us sign a non-disclosure agreement when we get hired. And we're not allowed to take pictures, and we're not allowed to talk about all of this stuff. I'm allowed to talk in general terms, but these pictures, I don't know where they're from, but they do look a little bit like where I work. And so when I was asked to send in some pictures, I try to use Bing, because that's a Microsoft product instead of Google. But I binged some pictures, you know, what's it look like at a Microsoft data center. And so these came up. So these are publicly available. I'm not breaking any rules by sharing these, but that bottom left picture, just imagine these rooms, these enormous gymnasium-sized rooms with just rack after rack after rack, and you can see how they're lined up shoulder to shoulder with just lots of computers, servers, and they serve different purposes. The ones on the right are a certain type, the ones on the left are a certain type, and they have different jobs. Like, for example, the ones on the right may be hosting things like the healthcare, police, government, or Xbox profiles, which are kept in the cloud. The ones on the left might be computing servers, which are maybe doing Bing searches. You know, when you type in a search, that goes to maybe one of these, and it returns your results. So if we do not have a new hire, then, well, what do? I'm still a trainer, and I'm working on different curriculum. So it's kind of like building textbooks. The technology out there is changing all the time, always getting new things. And so that means we always have new processes and products to train on. So I'm constantly coming up with new ways to train and coming up with training content. So I always have a project going, and always something to do. So the typical day, most of the time, I still get that interaction with people, but sometimes it's a lot of sitting behind the computer, just creating, you know, PowerPoint decks and things like that. Real quick, I wanted to say that I started out in elementary education, and I never really liked school. I don't know if anybody can relate to that, but I never was a big fan of school. I didn't want to sit there. I'm always looking out the window, wanting to be on the other side, doing something outside, fishing or playing or something. But and I always remember thinking as a kid, I think I would do this a little different. You know, this teacher, I'm not sure they're doing the best thing. So that kind of became one of the reasons I wanted to be a teacher, an elementary teacher. And I thought, you know, let me keep these kids engaged and active and fun. And small point is, when they came to my 4th grade class, we never did alphabetical the right way. We always went backwards. I've always been at the end of the alphabet my entire life. So we always went backwards for at least 1 year. So anyway, I hope I hope you have questions for the Microsoft Data Center, because it is an amazing place. It's right here in our backyard. And let me tell you real quick, one of the questions I was asked is, what's so cool about the job? And I'm from South Hill. I live in South Hill. It's just a tiny little town. But when I log into my computer, I am all of a sudden, I'm part of this enormous network. I talk to people all over the world. And of course, you have to go with the time zones. But and we divide up the world in these different sections, not exactly with the time zones, but close. And so when I get to work, I might have a question. We use something a little bit like Zoom, like what we're on right now. It's called Teams, and we have these chats and things. And so I will have a lot of interaction with people all over the world. And so just this morning, another trainer from Brazil sent pictures of her weekend, and it was so cool to see her. She was swimming and found a little turtle, a sea turtle. So she shared that picture. And we have chats and trainings from all over. So I might be talking to somebody from Amsterdam or on the West Coast of the United States, Chicago, San Antonio. So it's just really cool that even though, I'm sitting here in South Hill, I feel like I'm a part of this huge global network.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Scott. So you've gotten to hear a little bit from each of our panelists today, and we're getting ready to go into our Q&A session, but I think Jesse is going to launch a second poll for us. So if you would, go ahead and click on a response.
I'll give folks just a few more seconds to get in your response. So basically, this just has a few questions, and it's just basically asking you what you're most curious to know from our panelists to get us started. Right. You can, of course, after we answer these questions, put anything you'd like to know in the Q&A.
Well, if it's all right, Jesse, I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Oh, here we go. Let's see. Seems like the most popular one right now is people are interested in just some of your hobbies and other interests when you're not at work. What are some of the things that you enjoy doing?
I'll jump in. I have a very active family. We are very busy. We're hopping all the time. We like to do a lot of outdoor stuff. So we do some four-wheeler riding, ATVs. We recently got a three-wheel autocycle. So we've been riding that around, and that's a lot of fun. But we liked adventures. We love to swim. Our little one plays soccer. Our oldest one has a baby. So we have a grandbaby too, and children ages 21, 16, and 6. Along with the baby that we play with, so we stay busy, but we do a lot of outdoor stuff, and we just like to do anything and enjoy being able to go do things. There's a lot of things we can't do, or things that get shut down or closed or canceled because of COVID, but a lot of things that we can do as a family where we can get outdoors. That's what we do.
I can jump in next. So I play tennis a couple times a week. That's just a way that I decided I needed to stay active, because I was kind of going home and not doing a lot, and decided that's not how you should be in life. I also enjoy climbing whenever I get the chance to do that. Haven't been able to do it a lot recently, but I do love doing that. I am an archer, so I shoot bow and arrow, mainly for targets. I don't hunt. And recently, I spent a lot of my time with my aunt and uncle, who kind of raised me as their own child. They recently bought a farm and have no idea how to do a farm. So being part of Extension, I have to come up and help them with some things sometimes. So I spend a lot of my time commuting from North Carolina to Rocky Mount, Virginia to help them out on the farm.
I'll jump in. Most of my hobbies, right now it's pretty much my hobby is being a dad and being a husband, because I've got a senior in high school and a freshman in high school. and are both very active. My son is in different sports leagues as well as my daughter. So it's pretty much taxi service, going to and from practices, picking up in practices, coming to work. I have a pretty significant commute to work, so that kind of adds to time to the day. So, Daniel, I respect your thought about playing tennis, and I truly wish I would have more time to get out and do something, because I certainly, when I get home, it's usually late. So it's usually, change clothes, grab a bite to eat, jump back in the car, and take, my son or daughter to a practice or pick them up from practice. But hobbies prior to all that kind of stuff, music was a big part of my passion as a drummer and stuff like that. And I also, enjoy traveling when we have opportunities to travel with our family, to see relatives, to see friends, and with that material. But right now, it's the taxi service, as I'm sure others can relate to.
I'm so excited I've graduated from that stage. I've got 2 daughters. The youngest one is finishing up her last year in college, but I did an absolute ton of softball games and cheerleading and dance competitions and all that fun stuff. But I wish I was closer to you guys. Daniel, I've also got a regular tennis game. I love tennis. It is a great way to keep active and have a little social contact in these times when it has been lacking. And I got a new bow just last year, so that was kind of cool. I've been working on my archery. I'm not great, but I'm getting there. But yeah, I love anything outdoors, and especially around the water, fishing and swimming and such.
Well, great. So you've heard about hobbies and things, what they do for fun, because I'm sure each of you faces some challenges in your career. So if you would share with everybody just the biggest challenge of your work.
So I'll start first, since I'm always last. But the challenge for me is definitely working remote. And so when, before March of last year, I went in every day. If a new person came in, I was able to look them in the face, and we sat at a conference table and we trained, and then we went out and visited the servers, and we were actually able to work on some practice servers. We could take them apart and put them back together, and I would be able to help them with that. So with them being there and me not, that has been a tremendous challenge. But Microsoft is full of really smart people. And so we came up with our plan B, which is now our plan A. But we created these training programs where we could do this remotely. It's not the best, we understand that. And we understand that we can't show you a PowerPoint and tell you this is how to do it, and you can go out and do it right away. You can fix these servers, or you can, we also do with logistics, which is a lot of shipping back and forth, parts back and forth. And we know that's impossible to do that over a chat, a video chat, but we do the best we can, and we've come up with some real great innovations. And so the challenges, we see that at Microsoft as being opportunities to let's figure out a solution. Maybe the solution doesn't exist, but we'll just figure out one, we'll come up with one. And so it really has let us stretch our legs, and we've come up with some really good thing and a lot of collaboration. It was really weird because I mentioned I'm on a team of, in my area, it's only about 18 trainers, and we talked pretty much every day, but I really didn't get to know them until we got this working remotely. Now we have virtual happy hours where we get together and we just talk. No business. We're not allowed to talk about business, so we talk about our pets and our cars and what our kids are doing. And so the challenge, at first it seems like, how are we going to get through this? And now it's like, wow, this really was the silver lining.
I'll jump in. With being in public education, challenges can be a variety of things, just from the day-to-day, whatever happens kind of lands on your lap, so to speak. But one of the biggest challenges right now is just finding great people that want to go into teaching. There's been a significant shift of folks not wanting to go into teaching for a multitude of reasons. And what that does is, obviously, if you don't have a great teacher in the building, it impacts student learning. And what it also does is another side of it is it stretches our current staff pretty thin, because they would have to go in and cover material with that. So we've got such a great place here where people really step up, and we try to support them whatever we can in different ways, whether it's giving them an extra stipend for covering classes and so on. But it's really stretching people thin and just really working hard. But like Scott said, we've got a lot of smart people here as well. that come up with creative ideas that, you know, really support people, support students, support families in those areas of struggle. And the other challenges are just day-to-day grind stuff that, you know, you have a plan set in place and something happens, and just slide that plan over and focus on whatever just occurred and try to fix that, resolve that issue. But I would say one of the biggest ones is just that shift away from wanting to go into teaching. So anybody that's listening out there that want to go into teaching, man, you are coming into a great opportunity. There will be always opportunities for you to find employment with that. So that's just my little plug to get you into teaching. So
I'm working on that for you, RJ. In training these future educators, I would say that our challenge now, it's kind of two things, but I really think COVID highlighted a lot of the challenges. So it's always been challenging to meet individual needs for students. I have some students that love online courses. They may work full time. They do well being organized on their own and being able to follow deadlines and due dates. And then I have some students that are not as self-motivated and really need to be in class and need somebody in front of them holding their hand. And I mean, in early childhood, I do a lot of hand holding with my students. You know, I feel like we're in a caring field, we're in a compassionate field. And so that's just kind of naturally what we do, right? We nurture people. So I've always done a lot of hand holding with my students, and I walk them through step by step. This is what you do here. Well, just ask me if you have a question. And remotely, and they don't see me face to face all the time, I feel like we don't have that personal connection as much. So it's been a challenge. When we first went to remote on everything, you know, we had to do everything by video. So I made a lot of videos, try to make things personalized for my students. And I still have those that feel like they need to talk to me daily or every other day, and that's fine. So I make accommodations for those students because I want them to be successful and I want them to feel comfortable. But I feel like COVID, you know, like you said, it was kind of that silver lining, and it showed us, oh, there are things that we can do to make our program better. So it kind of forced us to be creative and to come up with alternatives, which have been better choices for some of our students. So in the future, we have all the materials set up to have an open lab for our students. So maybe all of our instruction is online, but the hands-on lab portion of their training is highly encouraged, right? Because we know how beneficial it is, but it's not going to be mandatory as far as attendance goes. So I can emphasize to students that, yes, you will be more successful if you come in during this open lab time and you get the hands-on art materials and you get to make this activity and use your peers as, you know, a guinea pigs as a student and pretend like they're a 2-year-old or a preschooler or whatever, and do a trial run with these activities before you go into a classroom and do them. But it may not be mandatory for attendance. So then, you know, we're meeting the needs of the students that do best remotely on their own. And then I'm meeting the needs of the students that need to be in class face to face. And I don't know that that would have been a thought for a need had we not had COVID and had to go remote. We probably would have just kept trucking along what we were doing. And some students may have been deterred because they thought, oh, I can't take off work and come to class at 9:30 on Tuesday, so I just won't take that program. So we're trying to meet the needs of diverse populations so that we can get them educated and get them those teaching licenses so that they can go work and be those great teachers in the classrooms that we need.
So as soon as it was asked about challenge, there's like 4 main challenges in my field that's just very well known. When you're hired on day one, you're going to hear these are going to be your biggest challenges. It's very obvious. The first is work-life balance and learning how to say no. So it is very common for extension agents to take on much more than they can handle and wind up getting overwhelmed and burnt out. And so learning how to say no is a really important skill that you have to learn how to do if you're going to stay in extension, because you can quickly get overwhelmed by having the local Boys and Girls Club, the YMCA, the public school system, Parks and Recreation, the farmers market, the occasionally the Institute, a bunch of things that just kind of all come flying at you. And you have to learn how to say no to some things, because otherwise you're just not going to be doing a good job. The other big challenge in our career, well, there's a couple other ones actually, but the next one I want to talk about is that like I said, one of the benefits of my job is that it's very free and open. You know, I decide how to do that, how I do my job. But that's a double-edged sword because on the other hand, you're kind of dropped into the city. Like I was just dropped into the city of Danville, said, all right, have fun. Like there's not a whole lot of guidance they can do, and that's no one's fault. My supervisor supervises 25 counties. So she's just not able to do that. And that's, you know, when you're hired, you're expected to be able to just do that. And so that can be a bit of a challenge too. Another one is field office ratio. That's a bit of a debate in our field right now. How much should I be in the office versus how much should I be in the field? And so trying to navigate that can be kind of tricky. And then attached to that, because you would think, well, shouldn't there just be a policy that says you should be this many days in the office, this many in the field? But you can't do that because of how different all 107 counties are. You can't put a blanket policy out there for the whole state because what works in Danville may not work in Abington. So it's left very gray intentionally for us to have a lot of room to interpret, but that also presents a lot of challenges, as I'm sure you can imagine.
Awesome. Some of you have shared a little bit about, you know, your educational background. I think that's important for students to know that, you know, for many teaching fields, that bachelor's degree is required, but there's also some testing, right? Still praxis, right? I'm a NTE. I'm from back old school. I was taking the NTE. But if you would share a little bit about just your formal training and kind of educational background that's required.
I'll go first this time. So to be an extension agent, you do need a master's degree in a related field. They are actually pretty, flippant's not the word, they're very flexible. So like my master's degree is not in education, it's not in working with youth, but it's in human services counseling, which works well for someone who's going to be supporting the community and their needs. Formal training, when you're hired as an extension agent, you do go through about 3 months of training where you kind of just learn the job and how to do it, which again is kind of hard to do when you're training a group of people that are serving as rural as Buckingham or as populated as Roanoke, and you're giving them the same training. So, but you do go through very basic training like that. Additionally, because I have the extra responsibility of being unit coordinator, that is another set of training that I have to go through. The cool thing about this job, though, is that you need a master's degree to have this position, but you can be hired with a bachelor's degree, and then you have 5 years to complete a master's degree, and Virginia Tech will pay for your master's degree if you go through it that way. The flip side is that doing our job while doing school full time is very challenging, but the idea of a free graduate degree is pretty appealing. Yeah, I think that's all I would have to share on that one. And just various licenses and trainings that I've done before. Like I'm a Project Wet instructor, Project Learning Tree, Project Wild. I have an archery instruction. I have mental health first aid training. So there's also a lot of opportunities in our field to go to these free trainings to get all of these credentials and background and education to enhance what we offer.
I'll go next. So to teach at a community college, we have certificates and associate's degrees that our students earn. So to teach at this level, you need a master's degree in that field. So my master's degree is in education. If you were going to teach biology, you would need that master's degree in biology. And then you could have 18 credit hours, 18 graduate credit hours to teach part-time. So we have a lot of part-time faculty that might teach a class or two each semester, but they're not full-time employees. And you can still just have those graduate level hours in that field. Mr. Greger can talk about, you know, what they need in the public school system. So if you wanted to teach at a higher level university, I would say if you wanted to teach students that were getting their bachelor's degree or their master's degree, you would need that terminal degree in your field. So you would need that education doctorate or a PhD or something like that if you wanted to go teach at, you know, JMU or Averett University or something like that at a 4-year degree.
I'll jump off right where Traci kind of left off. And that's exactly right. If you want to go into teaching, your minimum, you would have to have a bachelor's degree. And then on top of that, you obviously have to have your teaching certificate within that. So you would have your teaching certificate, but the school system a lot of times will help you once you have your endorsement and you're eligible for a teaching degree, they'll kind of help you through the process of the praxis assessment. I too originally was an NTE person, so I'm right there with you, Julie. So I totally get that. And so the praxis is a certificate that helps you get your teaching license certificate. I'm just kind of an education junkie, so I got my master's degree in administration, and then continue the process to get my doctorate in educational leadership from VCU. But like Traci said, to go into the aspect of teaching, you have to have your bachelor's degree from a accredited school system, and then you will get your teaching certificate along that process. And within your teaching certificate is the praxis. There's some other tests that kind of go along with that teaching certificate.
I definitely should have gone first on this one because I've got the least of everybody. Okay, so I got my bachelor's from Elon University, which at the time it was Elon College, and got my teaching certificate from St. Paul's here in Lawrenceville, back when it was open. So the the teaching certificate was so I could become an elementary teacher. So I stayed in elementary teaching for a long time. There are 4 trainers at our data center, and out of the 4, I'm the only one with a degree. And they are, all 3 of them started out as technicians and then advanced site senior technician, and then site lead, and then to trainer. So they, to become a trainer, you don't necessarily need to have a degree, but you do have to have what we call the growth mindset, which is this attitude, I always want to keep learning. I mentioned that I'm not a great student, but it doesn't mean I don't love learning. And I love keeping up with all the advancements and all the changes. And so growth mindset, it's more than that. And Microsoft really is good at teaching how, we don't mind if you fail. If you have that growth mindset, it's okay, let's learn. It makes failing part of the process. And so when we talk about what is required, we don't necessarily look for degrees, or but we do like to see certifications, which kind of are an indication that you love this particular thing, you love learning about it, and not to mention you've sat in a class before, so you know what it's like.
All right, well, we're about out of time, and I think Jesse may have one closing poll for us today, and we want to thank everybody. And I'll just reiterate what Dr. Greger said, that if you love teaching and educating others, there are job opportunities for you right in your backyard. So please consider a career in education, because we need you. So here's Jesse.
We're going to close just before Sherry gives you a couple housekeeping things about the other career choice activities with one final poll. This one is going to have just 2 questions. So this is, did you know any of the organizations that are represented on today's panel before today? And then what were you most surprised to learn from our panelists today? What they do, where they work, or kind of their experience and training that led them to your current position. So I'll give folks just a few seconds to submit their responses, and then we'll peek at our results. So we had a mix. A few of you had heard of organizations. I think Microsoft's a big one, but a few are new, and then experience. And that's been, I'm curious to see, we've got 2 more panels, but that has been what folks have been most surprised to learn from their panelists about their experience. So we'll see if that trend stays over the course of our panel. So to our students, I hope that some of you will be able to jump onto this afternoon's panels. And thank you personally to all of our panelists. And I'm going to turn things over to Sherry for just a quick close.
All right, students, we hope that you were exposed to some new careers and organizations in our region today. You can continue your career exploration through Major Clarity and the Career Choice website and activities. Remember, the more you engage, the more you earn. The panel counts as an activity towards Career Choice gear, as do the other panels, the scavenger hunt, and then the survey that's coming today. Thank you to our moderator, panelists, teachers, and sponsors who made today's discussion possible. We couldn't bring Career Choice to our region and to our students without you. Here's hoping that we get to see you all, business students and teachers, back in person next school year. Thank you.